World's richest trafficker buys single mother at an auction to have a child. Hey there, I'm Alex, your guide through today's extraordinary tale on Hearts of Crime. What you're about to witness is a story of passion and danger that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Trust me, when I say the twist at the end will leave you absolutely speechless. If you enjoy these forbidden love stories, please hit that like button and drop a comment below sharing your thoughts. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our daily uploads of these incredible stories. Stay with me until the very end. I promise the conclusion will shock you in ways you can't imagine. So sit back, relax, and enjoy today's episode. Have a wonderful day, and may God bless you and your family. The crystal chandeliers cast a golden glow over the ballroom of the Grand Palace Hotel. William Reed stood in the shadows, observing the gathered elite with cold, calculating eyes. His tailored black suit accentuated his tall, muscular frame, while his chiseled jawline and piercing blue eyes had turned more than a few heads that evening. Not that he cared. William hadn't built Obsidian Enterprises into a global empire by concerning himself with admiring glances. As one of the wealthiest men in the world, he was accustomed to attention. What people didn't know, what they could never know, was how he had accumulated his vast fortune. Behind the legitimate business facade lay a network of illegal operations that spanned continents. Tonight, however, was about something else entirely. "The charity auction will begin in 5 minutes, sir," his assistant Thomas whispered, appearing silently at his side. "Everything is arranged as requested," William nodded dismissively. "And our special item? Lot number 17, as you specified. The auction was ostensibly for charity, a gathering of the world's elite to bid on rare art, exotic vacations, and exclusive experiences. But William knew better. For select participants, certain lots represented something far more valuable and far more illegal. Across the room, Rachel Thompson clutched her small purse tightly, feeling desperately out of place among the designer gowns and dripping diamonds. Her simple black dress, the nicest thing she owned, had seemed elegant in her tiny apartment. Here, it merely marked her as an outsider. With her flowing auburn hair and striking green eyes, Rachel might have been considered beautiful in different circumstances. Tonight, she was simply terrified. "I remember the arrangement," the man beside her murmured. Robert Lane was her only connection to this world, a world she had never imagined entering. "1 night of your time in exchange for clearing your brother's debt. Completely legal. Just a date with the highest bidder." Rachel nodded stiffly. What choice did she have? After her brother Jack had borrowed money from the wrong people and disappeared, the debt collectors had come to her. A single mother working 2 jobs, she had nothing to give them, until Lane had appeared with his proposition. "You'll be lot 17, Lane continued. "Just smile and look pretty. These men pay for the fantasy, not reality." The auctioneer's voice boomed across the ballroom, signaling the start of the proceedings. William paid little attention to the first 16 lots, though he placed strategic bids to maintain appearances. His mind was focused on the real reason he was here. When Lot 17 was announced, he straightened almost imperceptibly. The woman who walked onto the small stage looked nothing like the others who had preceded her. There was a naturalness to her beauty, an authenticity that caught his attention immediately. "Ladies and gentlemen, Lot 17 offers a unique opportunity. An evening with the lovely Rachel." William observed the men around him, noting their leering gazes with disgust. Yes, he participated in this corrupt world, but even he had lines he wouldn't cross. His interest in this particular lot was more complex. When the bidding began, William remained silent, watching as the amounts climbed steadily higher. Only when it appeared to be slowing did he raise his hand and double the highest bid. A gasp rippled through the crowd. The auctioneer, momentarily flustered, quickly regained his composure. "I have 50,000 from Mr. Reed. Do I hear 60? The room fell silent. No one dared compete with William Reed. "Sold to Mr. Reed for $50,000. Rachel felt her knees weaken. She recognized the name. Everyone knew William Reed, the reclusive billionaire whose face occasionally graced business magazines. What she couldn't understand was why such a man would pay a small fortune for her company. As she was led from the stage, Lane gripped her elbow tightly. "This is unexpected," he hissed. "Reed never participates in these arrangements. Whatever he wants, you give it to him, understand? This could clear more than just your brother's debt." Before she could respond, they were approached by a stern-looking man who introduced himself as Thomas, Mr. Reed's personal assistant. "Mr. Reed would like to speak with you privately," he stated, his tone making it clear this was not a request. "Please follow me." Lane released her arm with a slight push. "Remember what I said." Thomas led Rachel through a maze of corridors to a private elevator. As they ascended to the penthouse level, Rachel's mind raced with fear and confusion. What could someone like William Reed possibly want with her? The elevator opened directly into a luxurious suite. Standing by the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city was the man himself, his back to her as he gazed at the glittering skyline. "Leave us," he commanded without turning around. Thomas departed silently. When William finally faced her, Rachel was struck by how much more intimidating he was up close. His eyes seemed to pierce through her, reading every thought, every fear. "Do you know who I am?" he asked, his voice surprisingly soft. "William Reed," she answered, trying to keep her voice steady, "owner of Obsidian Enterprises." A slight smile touched his lips. "That's what the public knows." He gestured toward a chair. "Please sit down. We have much to discuss." Rachel perched on the edge of the seat, ready to flee despite knowing there was nowhere to go. William remained standing, studying her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. "I know about your brother Jack. I know about his debt, about your daughter Lily, about the 2 jobs you work to make ends meet." The blood drained from Rachel's face. "How could you possibly—" "Information is valuable in my world," he interrupted. "More valuable than money." He moved to a sidebar and poured 2 glasses of water, offering one to Rachel. When she hesitated, he took a deliberate sip from his own glass, then handed her the untouched one. "I'm not here to harm you, Miss Thompson. Quite the opposite." Rachel accepted the water but didn't drink. "Then what do you want from me?" William's expression changed subtly, revealing a vulnerability she wouldn't have thought possible in such a man. "I want to make you a proposal," he said, seating himself across from her. "One that could change both our lives." A heavy silence hung between them as Rachel waited, her heart pounding. "I need an heir," William stated simply, "and I believe you are the perfect person to help me create one." The glass slipped from Rachel's fingers, shattering on the marble floor. Outside the penthouse windows, lightning flashed across the night sky, illuminating the shock on Rachel's face and the deadly serious expression on William's as their worlds collided, in ways neither could have imagined. Thomas silently appeared to clean up the broken glass, while Rachel remained frozen in her seat, William's words echoing in her mind. An heir. This powerful man wanted her to bear his child. "I understand this is shocking," William said once Thomas had departed. His voice carried an unexpected gentleness. "Let me explain." Rachel found her voice, though it trembled. "There is nothing to explain. I am not for sale, Mr. Reed, not for any price." A flicker of admiration crossed William's face. Few people had ever dared to refuse him anything. "I am not proposing to buy you, Ms. Thompson. I am offering you a partnership, a legally binding arrangement that would benefit us both." He moved to the window, his silhouette sharp against the city lights. "I require an heir for my business empire, someone with the right qualities. A child raised by a mother with integrity, resilience, and natural intelligence. Qualities I've observed in you." Rachel laughed bitterly. "You don't know the first thing about me." "Don T.I.?" William turned, his penetrating gaze making her shift uncomfortably. "Single mother to Lily, aged 4. Brother Jack disappeared after borrowing money from the Harrington syndicate. You work as a nurse during the day and waitress 3 nights a week. You graduated top of your class despite working throughout your education. You've never been late on your rent despite your circumstances." The color drained from Rachel's face. "You've been investigating me." "Thoroughly," William confirmed without apology. "I don't make decisions lightly, especially not ones of this magnitude." "And what exactly are you proposing?" Rachel asked, curiosity momentarily overriding her fear. William sat down across from her, their knees almost touching. "A 1-year arrangement. You would live in my residence, carry my child, and after delivery remain as the child's mother. You would have financial security for life, the best education for both your children, and protection from those currently threatening you." Rachel's mind reeled. "And what would you get?" "An heir with the right genetic and environmental advantages. I am not getting any younger, Ms. Thompson, and my empire needs security." Rachel stood abruptly, needing distance. "This is insane. You could have any woman you wanted. Models, actresses, women from your own social circle." William's expression hardened. "I've had those women. They reinterested in my wealth, not in raising a child with the values I require. You, on the other hand, have proven your dedication as a mother under the most challenging circumstances." Rachel paced the room, her thoughts chaotic. The offer was both repulsive and tempting. Security for Lily. Protection from her brother's enemies. A future without constant fear and struggle. "I need time to think," she said finally. William nodded, retrieving a business card from his pocket. "You have 24 hours. My private number is on the back. If I don't hear from you, I'll assume you've declined and our paths will never cross again." As Rachel reached for the card, their fingers brushed. The unexpected contact sent a jolt through her that had nothing to do with fear. "Thomas will see you home," William said, his voice suddenly businesslike. "Consider carefully, Ms. Thompson. Opportunities like this don't come twice." The next morning, Rachel sat at her kitchen table long after Lily had left for preschool, William Ing's card untouched before her. She barely slept, her mind cycling through every aspect of his proposal. A knock at the door startled her. Through the peephole, she saw 2 men in expensive suits, the same men who had been threatening her over Jack's debt. "We know you in there, Rachel," one called. "Time's up. Either we get our money, or we take something of equal value." Rachel's heart hammered. The thinly veiled threat toward Lily wasn't lost on her. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "They rewatching your apartment. Decision time has been accelerated. Yes or no?" William. How did he know? The answer was obvious. He'd been watching too. With shaking fingers, she typed, "Yes, get us out of here." Within minutes, the men at her door were approached by police officers. From her window, Rachel watched them being escorted away. Shortly after, Thomas arrived in a black SUV. "Mr. Reed has handled the situation temporarily," he informed her as they drove to Lily's preschool. "But the Harrington syndicate isn't easily deterred. You'll need to pack essentials only. Everything else can be replaced." By nightfall, Rachel and Lily were installed in William's countryside estate, a sprawling mansion set on acres of manicured grounds with security that rivaled most government buildings. "Mommy, is this a castle?" Lily whispered, her blue eyes wide with wonder as Thomas showed them to their suite of rooms. Rachel squeezed her daughter's hand. "It is just a house, sweetie. A very big house where we'll be staying for a while. Mr. Reed has arranged for your daughter its education with a private tutor until more permanent arrangements can be made," Thomas informed her. "He would like to meet with you in his study after dinner to discuss the terms of your agreement." Dinner was served in their rooms, simple but delicious food that Lily devoured enthusiastically. Rachel could hardly eat, anxiety knotting her stomach as she contemplated what she had agreed to. Later, after settling Lily to sleep in a bedroom larger than their entire apartment, Rachel followed Thomas through the mansion's winding corridors to William's study. The room was warmly lit, walls lined with books, a fire crackling in a stone fireplace. William stood as she entered, gesturing to a leather chair opposite his desk. "I've had legal documents prepared," he began without preamble, sliding a thick folder toward her. "You'll find everything as I outlined, plus additional provisions for your security and comfort." Rachel didn't touch the folder. "Before I look at anything, I need to understand something. Why this elaborate arrangement? The richest man in the country could certainly find more conventional ways to have a child." William studied her for a long moment. "Our conventional methods have failed me," he said finally. "My wife died years ago. Since then I've had relationships, but none suited to parenthood." "I'm sorry about your wife," Rachel said softly. A shadow crossed William Egg's face. Emily was the only person who knew me completely. After losing her, I focused entirely on building my empire. And now you want an heir to inherit it? Rachel concluded. Yes. William S. gaze was steady. But not just any heir. A child with the right foundation, genetically and morally. Rachel finally opened the folder, scanning the document ES first pages. This says, "We be married." A legal necessity to protect the child. S. inheritance rights, William explained. It would be a marriage on paper only, dissolved after the specified term if you wish. As Rachel continued reading, her eyebrows rose. This is extensive. It covers every contingency, William confirmed. As your complete financial independence, full legal custody shared between us, protection for both your children, private education through university level. Rachel closed the folder, suddenly overwhelmed. And if he'd have another child, medical procedures on a T guarantees. Then the agreement terminates after the attempt period, with a generous settlement to ensure your lifetime security. William leaned forward. I am not a monster, Miss Thompson. I want to hold you to impossible standards. Something in his tone made Rachel look up sharply. There was more to this man than his ruthless reputation suggested. I'll need my own lawyer to review this, she said. William nodded, seemingly pleased by her caution. I would expect nothing less. I've taken the liberty of arranging several options, independent attorneys with no connection to me or my businesses. He stood, signaling the end of their meeting. Take whatever time you need. Your safety here is guaranteed regardless of your decision. As Rachel rose to leave, curiosity compelled her to ask one more question. At the auction, why me? There must have been dozens of candidates more suitable. William's expression changed subtly. Let Haas just say something in your file caught my attention. Before she could press further, Thomas appeared to escort her back to her rooms, leaving Rachel with the distinct impression that William Reed was hiding something significant, something that directly involved her. A week passed in surreal comfort. Lily blossomed under the attention of her tutor and the freedom of the vast gardens. Rachel spent her days reviewing the contract with a sharp-eyed attorney named Diane Porter, who seemed genuinely impressed by the document S. Fairness. He S. covered everything, Diane admitted during their final session. Your interests are protected at every turn. If I didn't know better, I'd say he was more concerned with your welfare than his own. Rachel frowned. That doesn't align with William Reed S.'s reputation. Diane shrugged. People contain multitudes, especially the powerful ones. Just be careful. Men like Reed always have motives beyond the obvious. That evening, Rachel signed the contract in William S. study, the scratch of pen on paper sealing her fate. William S.'s signature followed, his hand steady and sure. There is something else you should know, he said, as Thomas poured champagne to mark the occasion. Something not in the contract. Rachel tensed. What? Your brother's situation has been resolved. He is no longer in danger, though he is currently in a rehabilitation facility upstate. The debt has been eliminated. Rachel nearly dropped her glass. Jack is alive? He is safe? William nodded. He'll remain in treatment for several months. After that, his future is his own responsibility. Tears filled Rachel's eyes. The weight of worry she carried for months suddenly lifted, leaving her light-headed with relief. Thank you, she whispered. William waved away her gratitude. It was a simple business transaction. The Harrington syndicate now understands that your family is under my protection. But Rachel sensed there was nothing simple about it. William Reed had just dismantled a criminal organization's claim on her family with a few phone calls. The power he wielded was both reassuring and terrifying. Sweet, I'll begin the medical procedures next week, William continued, all business again. Dr. Patel is the best reproductive specialist in the country. She'll oversee everything. Rachel nodded, reality crashing back. She had agreed to have this man's child, a man she barely knew whose business dealings remained shadowy at best. As if reading her thoughts, William added, I understand this arrangement is unusual. I don't expect personal feelings to be involved. This is, at its core, a business arrangement beneficial to both parties. Of course, Rachel agreed, though something in her rebelled at the clinical nature of his words. This wasn't just business, this was creating a life. The following weeks established a routine. Mornings with Lily, afternoons with Dr. Patel's team, evenings often spent alone as William frequently worked late or traveled for business. Rachel rarely saw him, which suited her initially, but as the first round of fertility treatments began, she found herself wishing for his presence. This was, after all, his child they were trying to create. His apparent detachment felt wrong somehow. One evening, unable to sleep, Rachel wandered the mansion's vast halls, eventually finding herself in the library. To her surprise, William was there, nursing a glass of whiskey while reviewing documents. He looked up as she entered, setting aside his work. "Trouble sleeping?" Rachel nodded, suddenly self-conscious in her nightgown and robe. "The hormones from the treatments make it difficult." William gestured to a chair near his. "Join me if you like. I find the quiet here soothing." Rachel hesitated, then sat. For several minutes they existed in surprisingly comfortable silence. "May I ask you something personal?" she finally ventured. William's eyebrow rose slightly, but he nodded. "Your wife, Emily. What was she like?" Pain flashed across his face so quickly Rachel almost missed it. "Remarkable," he said after a pause. "Brilliant mind, compassionate heart. She saw value in people others dismissed." "How did she die?" Rachel asked softly. William's hand tightened around his glass. "A rare blood disorder, very sudden. She was gone within weeks of diagnosis." "I'm sorry," Rachel said, recognizing the grief that still lingered in his voice. "As am I." William set down his glass. "Emily was the moral compass of our partnership. After losing her, certain aspects of the business expanded in directions she would have opposed. The admission hung between them, the closest he'd come to acknowledging the illegal side of his empire." "Why tell me this?" Rachel asked. William's gaze was intense. "Because you will be the mother of my child. You deserve some truth, even if not the whole truth." Before Rachel could respond, Thomas appeared at the doorway. "Sir, there is a situation requiring your attention." William stood immediately. "We'll continue this another time, Miss Thompson." Rachel watched him leave, more confused than ever about the complex man she had agreed to partner with. The breakthrough came unexpectedly during the second round of treatments. Dr. Patel confirmed the pregnancy with cautious optimism, warning that the first trimester remained critical. William received the news with uncharacteristic emotion, actually embracing Rachel briefly before composing himself. "Everything you need will be provided," he assured her. "Your only responsibility is your health and the child's." As the pregnancy progressed, William became more present, joining Rachel for dinner several times a week, taking an interest in Lily, even accompanying Rachel to medical appointments. A tentative friendship formed between them, built on their shared goal and growing mutual respect. One evening, Rachel found William in the garden, watching Lily chase fireflies across the lawn. "She has your determination," he observed as Rachel joined him. Rachel smiled. "And her father's charm, unfortunately. He could talk his way into or out of anything." "Where is he now?" William asked. "Gone," Rachel said simply. "He left when I told him I was pregnant. Said he wasn't too father material." William's jaw tightened. His loss. The simple statement carried unexpected weight. Rachel studied William's profile in the fading light, seeing him with new eyes. Beneath the powerful exterior was a man who valued family, who understood its importance in ways Lily's biological father never had. "There's something I've been wondering," Rachel said. "That first night you mentioned something in my file caught your attention. What was it?" William's expression became guarded. "It is not important." "It is to me," Rachel insisted. "You have investigated every aspect of my life, yet I know almost nothing about why I am really here." Something shifted in William's demeanor. A decision made. "Come with me." He led her to his study, unlocking a drawer to retrieve a worn manila folder. Inside was a newspaper clipping, yellowed with age. The headline read, "Local nurse saves child in highway accident." Rachel recognized the photo immediately. herself, much younger, holding a bloodied child in her arms on the shoulder of a highway. "This happened years ago," she said, confused. "I was just doing my job." "The child was my nephew," William said quietly. "My sister's son. You saved his life that day." Rachel stared at him in shock. "That's why you chose me? Because of this?" William took the clipping from her trembling hands. "It was the starting point. Your actions that day demonstrated extraordinary character, risking your life for a stranger. When I needed someone to bear my child, someone with the right qualities, I remembered your name." Rachel sank into a chair, mind reeling. "So all of this, the auction, the contract, everything, it was planned around me specifically?" "Yes." William's gaze was unflinching. "So I've learned never to believe in coincidence. Finding you at that auction, arranged by people who owed me favors, was the culmination of extensive planning." "That's disturbing," Rachel whispered. "It's business," William countered. "Finding the right person for a critical role always requires thorough vetting." Rachel felt a chill despite the room's warmth. "And what if I hadn't agreed? What was your backup plan?" Something flickered in William's eyes, a rare glimpse of vulnerability. "There was no backup plan. It had to be you." The admission hung between them, charged with implications neither was ready to acknowledge. "I should check on Lily," Rachel said, rising abruptly. William nodded, returning the clipping to its folder. "Rachel," he called as she reached the door, "I may have orchestrated our meeting, but everything that's happened since has been your choice. Remember that." Rachel left without responding, her mind turbulent with new questions. Had it truly been her choice? Or had William Reed simply created circumstances where she had no realistic alternative? As she closed the study door behind her, Rachel placed a protective hand over her slightly rounded abdomen. Whatever William's true motivations, one reality was undeniable. She was carrying his child, binding them together in ways neither had fully anticipated. In the shadowy corridor, she failed to notice Thomas watching from an alcove, his expression troubled as he lifted a phone to his ear. "Sir?" he murmured to someone who was definitely not William Reed. "The situation has progressed faster than expected. She is beginning to ask questions we can't afford to have answered." Behind the closed study door, William stared at the old newspaper photo, fingers tracing Rachel's younger face. "You have no idea who you really are," he whispered. "But soon you will." As Rachel's pregnancy progressed, the mansion began to feel more like home. Lily had fully adapted to their new life, thriving under the attention of her tutors and developing an unexpected bond with William, who often found time to join the child for evening stories despite his demanding schedule. The morning sickness had finally subsided, leaving Rachel with renewed energy and growing curiosity. William's revelation about their past connection had opened a door she couldn't close. There were still missing pieces to this puzzle, and she intended to find them. One afternoon, while William was away on business, Rachel found herself drawn to his study. She knew Thomas monitored the security systems vigilantly, but the assistant had accompanied William on this trip, leaving only the regular security staff who kept a respectful distance. The study door was locked as expected, but Rachel had observed William enough times to know where he kept the spare key, behind a false panel in a nearby bookshelf. The moral implications of snooping troubled her, but the need to understand the full truth about her situation overrode her hesitation. Inside, everything was meticulously organized, files arranged alphabetically, documents stacked with military precision. Rachel moved directly to the drawer where William had retrieved the newspaper clipping about her heroic act. The folder was there, containing not just the clipping, but a comprehensive file about her life. Most of it covered information she'd expect: employment history, education records, medical files, but tucked in the back was something unexpected: a DNA test. Rachel's hands trembled as she read the results, dated shortly after the highway accident. The test compared her DNA with someone named E. Reed, Emily Reed, William's deceased wife. A notation in William's handwriting appeared in the margin: 99.2% probability, maternal half-sister, confirmation of SR theory. Rachel sank into William S. chair, the document clutched in her suddenly numb fingers. Half-sister? She was related to William S. wife? How was that possible? Her mother had died when Rachel was young, and her father had never mentioned any half-siblings. A soft noise behind her made Rachel whirl around. Thomas stood in the doorway, his expression grim. "I see you. We found it," he said quietly. "Mr. Reed had hoped to tell you himself when the time was right." "What is this?" Rachel demanded, waving the paper. "How can I be related to his wife? It is impossible." Thomas entered the room, closing the door behind him. "Nothing is impossible with the right information, Miss Thompson, or should I say Miss Harrington." The name hit Rachel like a physical blow. "Harrington? Like the syndicate that was after my brother? Not like, the same." Thomas sighed heavily. "This is beyond my authority to explain. Mr. Reed is already on his way back. He was alerted the moment you entered this room." "I want answers now," Rachel insisted, protective instincts flaring. One hand moved to her rounded abdomen. William S. child, but also her child. A child potentially entangled in something dangerous before even being born. Thomas hesitated, then seemed to reach a decision. "Very well, but not here. The walls have ears, even from those Mr. Reed doesn't he trust completely." He led her through the house to the garden, where they walked among hedges high enough to prevent lip-reading from security cameras. The afternoon sun cast long shadows as Thomas finally began to speak. "The Harrington family has controlled much of the illegal trafficking in this region for generations. James Harrington, the current head, had 2 daughters by different women. The first, Emily, was raised within the family, groomed to eventually take over. The second, you, was born to a woman who fled with her child, desperate to escape the family's influence." Rachel stopped walking. "That is absurd. My father was Daniel Thompson, a high school teacher." "Daniel Thompson was a good man who married your mother knowing the risks," Thomas acknowledged. "But he wasn't your biological father. James Harrington was. That would make me a Harrington by blood, half-sister to Emily, who later became Emily Reed when she married William." Rachel's mind raced, connecting fragments of memories. Her mother's unexplained fear of strangers, their frequent moves during her early childhood, the lack of extended family. "If what you are saying is true, then William married into the very criminal organization he now controls parts of," Rachel said slowly. Thomas's expression remained neutral. "William married Emily before he knew the full extent of her family's operations. When he discovered the truth, it nearly destroyed their marriage. Emily had been trying to distance herself from her father's business, but generations of entanglement aren't easily severed. And William? How did he get involved?" After Emily's diagnosis, James Harrington approached William with an offer: access to experimental treatments not available in this country in exchange for William's business expertise and legitimate cover for certain operations. Rachel felt sick. He became part of it to save her. "Yes," Thomas confirmed, "but the treatments failed. Emily died, and William found himself trapped in an alliance with her father. He has spent years since then working to dismantle the organization from within, gathering evidence, redirecting operations toward legitimate businesses." "And where do I fit in all this?" Thomas gazed at her with something like sympathy. "You were never supposed to be involved. Emily knew about you. She'd discovered your existence shortly before her illness and had been watching over you from a distance. After her death, William continued that protection, keeping your connection to the Harringtons secret. Until my brother borrowed money from them," Rachel concluded bitterly. "An unfortunate coincidence. Jack Thompson had no idea who he was really dealing with. When William discovered a Harrington debt collector was threatening you, he accelerated his plans." "What plans?" Thomas looked uncomfortable. "That S for Mr. Reed to explain." As if summoned by his name, William appeared at the garden entrance, his face taut with controlled emotion. Thomas nodded respectfully and withdrew, leaving Rachel alone with the man who had orchestrated so much of her life without her knowledge. "How much has Thomas told you?" William asked, approaching slowly. Enough to know you've been lying to me from the beginning, Rachel replied, anger building. You didn't choose me because I saved your nephew. You chose me because I am Emily's sister. William didn't deny it. The accident was how I found you, recognized you more accurately. Emily had shown me pictures but respected your mother, as wished to keep you separate from Harrington influence. When I saw you there covered in my nephew's blood, I couldn't believe the coincidence. And the contract? This child? Rachel placed both hands protectively over her stomach. Was this all about creating a Harrington heir under your control? Pain flashed across William's face. No, never that. He stepped closer, his voice dropping. This was about saving you and, yes, creating an heir, but not for the reasons you think. William guided her to a stone bench partially concealed by flowering vines. After Emily died, I made a promise to dismantle her father's organization. I've spent years gathering evidence, redirecting assets, preparing for the final move against James Harrington. But there was a complication. Me, Rachel said flatly. Yes. As Emily's half-sister, you have a claim to the Harrington estate, legitimate and illegitimate portions alike. If James ever discovered your existence, you would become either a tool or a target. So you decided to make me your tool instead. William flinched. I decided to protect you the only way I could, by binding your future to mine through a child who would be both Reed and Harrington by blood, cementing your position under my protection. Without ever telling me the truth, Rachel accused. I planned to tell you everything after the baby was born, William insisted. When you would be too invested in our arrangement to walk away. Rachel stood, needing distance from him. You had no right to make these decisions for me. Perhaps not, William conceded. But I made the best choice available given the circumstances. James Harrington's organization has killed dozens who stood in their way. Your ignorance of your heritage was your only protection, until Jack unknowingly connected you to them. And now, William's expression hardened. Now everything changes. James knows about you. Thomas's sources confirmed it this morning. Your brother didn't just borrow money. He was bragging about family connections he didn't understand. It is why I had to return early. Fear replaced anger in Rachel's heart. Lily is safe, William assured her. I've moved her to a more secure location with her tutor. We need to join them immediately. And then what? William met her gaze directly. Then I finish what Emily started. The complete dismantling of the Harrington network. Tonight. The safe house was a modernist structure built into a mountainside, accessible only by helicopter. Lily greeted Rachel with excited tales of the flight, seemingly untroubled by the sudden change in location. After ensuring her daughter was settled, Rachel found William in the house's command center, a room filled with monitors displaying security feeds and data streams. He was speaking in terse sentences to Thomas and several people she didn't recognize. Federal agents, William explained when he noticed her watching. We've been working together for months. You are cooperating with the government? Rachel asked, surprised. A necessary alliance. William dismissed the others with a nod, waiting until they left before continuing. Tonight, simultaneous raids will target 17 Harrington operations. James and his key lieutenants will be arrested on charges that will keep them imprisoned for decades. And your involvement in those operations? William's smile was grim. Immunity in exchange for evidence. Emily began gathering it before she died. Account numbers, meeting recordings, shipping manifests. I've spent years completing her work. Rachel studied him with new understanding. You never wanted to run a criminal empire. Never, William confirmed. What I wanted was justice for Emily. She died believing she'd failed to escape her father's world. I intend to prove otherwise. A thought struck Rachel. If James Harrington goes to prison and his organization is dismantled, what happens to his assets? They'll be seized, liquidated, with proceeds going toward restitution for victims. And the legitimate businesses? William hesitated. Those legally pass to his heirs. To me, Rachel said softly. And to this child. She placed a hand on her stomach. Yes, though I've created a structure to manage everything through blind trusts. You need never be publicly connected to the Harrington name if you do not wish it. Rachel sat heavily in a nearby chair, overwhelmed by implications. So I go from struggling single mother to, what? Secret heiress to a criminal fortune being converted to legitimate enterprises? If you choose to accept it, William said carefully. The trusts are structured so you can walk away completely, take a settlement and disappear with your children. I would not stop you. The offer hung between them: freedom, wealth, a complete escape from the complex web William had drawn her into. And what about you? Rachel asked. What do you get if I stay, if I go? Something vulnerable crossed William's face. If you stay, I get the family Emily always wanted us to have. You recognized as her sister, our child connecting the broken pieces she left behind. If you go, he shrugged, I return to what I was before, alone with my empire. On one of the monitors, Rachel noticed a clock counting down, less than an hour until the raids began. Whatever she decided, nothing would be the same after tonight. I need time to think, she said. William nodded. Of course, but not too much time. Once the operations begin, we'll need to move again for safety. Rachel found a quiet room overlooking the valley below, darkness now cloaking the landscape except for scattered lights marking distant homes. People living normal lives, unaware of the power struggles and secret alliances reshaping the world around them. Her world had been like that once, ordinary, predictable in its struggles and small joys. Now she stood at a crossroads between wealth beyond imagination and a return to normalcy, albeit with financial security. The door opened quietly behind her. It's time, William said. The first raids have begun. Rachel turned. If I stay, I want the complete truth from now on. No more secrets, no more manipulations. Agreed, William said without hesitation. And our arrangement, the contract, needs renegotiation. I want to be a glorified surrogate with visiting rights to my own child. William stepped closer. What are you proposing? A real partnership, not just legal, not just business. If I am going to help you manage this legacy, good and bad parts alike, then we do it together as equals. Something shifted in William's expression, respect perhaps, or admiration. You truly are Emily's sister. She would have demanded nothing less. I am not doing it for her, Rachel clarified. I am doing it for myself, for Lily, and for this child. William extended his hand. Partners, then, in all things. Rachel accepted his hand, but instead of shaking it, she held it firmly. I need you to understand something, William. I am not Emily, I never will be. If there was ever going to be anything real between us beyond this arrangement, it has to be about who we are now, not ghosts from your past. William's fingers tightened around hers. I know exactly who you are, Rachel. Someone strong enough to build a new future from a complicated past. Someone I've come to admire for reasons entirely separate from your connection to Emily. For the first time, Rachel allowed herself to truly see the man behind the power and manipulation. A man capable of both ruthless calculation and profound loyalty. A man who had orchestrated her entry into his life for complex reasons that weren't too entirely self-serving. The moment was interrupted by an urgent knock. Thomas entered, his usually composed face tense with excitement. It's done. James Harrington is in custody. All primary targets secured. William Dadin's shoulders dropped slightly, the only visible sign of his relief. Any complications? Nothing significant. The evidence is being processed as we speak. And the press? A controlled release beginning at dawn. Your statement is prepared for delivery by video at noon. William nodded. Ensure our transport is ready. We'll return to the main house once the all clear is confirmed. When Thomas departed, Rachel found herself suddenly exhausted. The emotional toll of the day ant's revelations catching up with her. You should rest, William said gently. The next few days will be challenging as this becomes public. Rachel nodded, but as she moved toward the door, she paused. When did you know? Know what? That you were falling in love with me. Not Emily's sister, not your contractual partner. Me. William went very still, surprise evident in his expression. After a moment he answered softly, The night you asked about Emily in the library. You showed compassion for my loss despite having every reason to resent my methods. That is when I knew you were becoming something I hadn't planned for. Rachel absorbed this, then nodded once before leaving him alone with the monitors showing the dismantling of an empire built on suffering and fear. 6 months later, Rachel sat in the garden of what was now truly her home, watching Lily chase butterflies across the lawn. Her son, barely 2 months old, slept peacefully in a bassinet beside her, his features a perfect blend of his parents. The transition had not been easy. The public story, carefully crafted by William S. PR team, explained Rachel as a long-lost relative of Emily S., who had reconnected with William through charity work. Their whirlwind romance and marriage had given the gossip columns plenty to speculate about, but the core truth remained hidden from all but a trusted few. The Harrington trials had proceeded without Rachel S.'s direct involvement, her connection to that family sealed in classified testimony. The legitimate businesses had been restructured under the Reed Thompson Foundation, dedicated to supporting victims of trafficking and funding rehabilitation programs. William approached across the lawn, looking more relaxed than Rachel had ever seen him. The successful dismantling of the Harrington network had removed a weight he carried for years. "How are my favorite people today?" he asked, bending to kiss her cheek before peering at their sleeping son. "Growing too quickly," Rachel replied with a smile. "The doctor says he is already off the charts for height." "Reed genes," William said proudly. "Harrington's stubbornness," Rachel countered, their familiar joke comfortable between them. William settled beside her on the bench. The final sentencing was today. James Harrington received multiple life terms. The organization is officially defunct. Rachel nodded, feeling a complex mix of emotions. The man was her biological father, yet a stranger who had brought nothing but danger to her life. Emily would be pleased. "Yes," William agreed, "but I've been thinking, it is time we stopped living in Emily's shadow. She brought us together, but what we've built is ours alone." He reached into his pocket, retrieving a small box. "I know we were already legally married, but that was a contract. This is a proposal." He opened the box to reveal a stunning emerald ring. "Marry me again, Rachel. Not for business, not for protection, not for Emily's legacy. Marry me because against all odds and manipulations, we found something real." Rachel looked at the sleeping child they'd created, at the daughter who now called William Dad, with genuine affection, at the empire they were reshaping together into something positive. "Yes," she said simply, allowing him to slip the ring onto her finger. "But this time I write the contract." William laughed, the sound carefree in a way she'd never heard before. "I wouldn't have it any other way." As they sealed their agreement with a kiss, Rachel reflected on the strange journey that had brought her here, from a struggling nurse to the partner of one of the world's most powerful men, from unknowing pawn to essential queen on a complex chessboard of power and redemption. The world would never know the full truth of their story, how the world's most notorious trafficker had fallen in love with the woman he'd initially seen as merely a means to an end. How that woman had transformed him, even as he changed her life irrevocably. How a child born of calculation had become the heart of a family forged in both darkness and light. Some secrets, Rachel had learned, were worth keeping. Others needed to be faced directly before healing could begin. The wisdom was in knowing the difference, a lesson both she and William had learned at great cost. As twilight descended on the garden, Rachel gazed at her expanded family with quiet contentment. The path ahead was neither perfect nor entirely predictable, but it was theirs to walk together. A future built not on deception, but on truth hardly anyone would believe if told. That sometimes the most unlikely beginnings could lead to the most powerful love stories, and that redemption was possible even for those who seemed beyond saving. William E.'s hand found hers, warm and secure. In that touch was a promise neither needed to voice aloud. Whatever came next, they would face it as they had faced the past, together, stronger for having found each other in the most unexpected of circumstances, and determined to create a legacy worthy of the second chance they'd been given. The child stirred in his bassinet, and both parents turned toward their son. The future they created, the bridge between worlds once divided, and the living proof that even the most calculated beginnings could lead to the most genuine of happy endings. Wow, I told you that ending would be unexpected. If you enjoyed this story, Please give this video a thumbs up and share your reactions in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to Hearts of Crime for more captivating stories, just like this one every single day. Click on the video appearing on your screen right now for another incredible tale of love in the criminal underworld. Thank you for watching until the end. May God bless you and your family, and I'll see you in the next video.